Okay, so guys, I have installed cluster yesterday. So if you remember yesterday, we were getting the continuous error like the DB secure failed. So I will tell you what happened actually, and we will install it again so that you can get the overview about it. So first of all, I will show you the installed one that is available here. So this is the console, guys. You can see it is getting started now. Okay, so you can see the services are coming up. This is the CVM cluster management, and on top of it, you can see there is a VIP IP. So this is the public IP 180. Sorry, this is the this is the public IP 180, and this is the VIP. So the VIP is pointing to the public IP 192.168.140.180, and this is the nearby node which is coming as which is also starting as of now. So you can see that the public IP of this particular node is 192.168.140.182. But if you see here, the VIP is pointing to this one. The VIP gets attached to the node whichever is active as of now. So this the current node in which we are as of now is the active node. If I want to fail over, so I can do that. I will just simply click on this middle arrow symbol, and now the services would be migrated to the next node. So the node which is passive as of now will become the active, and the current node will become the passive node. And you will see this VIP will get attached to the passive node. So if we go to the passive node now, you will see that resources should be coming up. You will see that the services would be coming up. So let's open the CVM over here. This will started. You can see this is getting started now. So benefit of using cluster is something, let's say if I need to do patching on this particular node, okay, I can simply stop the cluster services and this node, get this patching done, reboot this node and bring up under this cluster. So let's say if I were to do a patching on this node, I can simply stop the cluster service. I will just show you how. So now you can see this becomes active, and the other one node which was active earlier now becomes passive. Now let's say if I were to do a patching on this node, I will want to install some Windows patch. I will simply stop the cluster service on this. So now it is getting stopped and it is nowhere a part of cluster anymore. So once it has get stopped completely, okay, I can install anything here and I can reboot the server as well. So the good part is my operations are not getting impacted because the one of the node of this cluster is already up. So the next node, this is already active. So my end users are not impacted. Neither my components are impacted. All components are talking to this active node. Okay. Once the other node gets rebooted, or I would say patched, I can resume the cluster services on that, and we can basically patch the other node as well. So that is the benefit. Without doing the DR failover, you have an option to switch over to different nodes. So now once you reboot the server, automatically the cluster service comes up on this. Let's see that now. So now you can see this is rebooted and it's coming up as a passive node. So coming back to yesterday's issue that we were doing. So if you remember, I was in adding a firewall rule, and eventually once we tried to put the username and password over there, it was coming as DB secure error. So what was the issue yesterday? So if you remember this thing, I was adding a firewall rule to the storage server, and once I add the firewall rule, and we were putting the username and password for our administrator and master user, we were getting the error. So why it was? Because at the initial stage, it does not support this. If you see the square bracket, syslog, crypto, backup, there is a square bracket. This is nothing but the comments section. Okay, you can comment it like why this firewall rule has been added, what is the relevance of adding the firewall rule. So you can add the comments on in this square bracket. So by the time I was adding those comments, it was not supported. The comment square box was not supported, and hence the reason we were getting that error. Now I have simply added firewall rule here without any comment box, and I didn't get any error. So referring the console log, I could see that this was the error, and I have just tried it without the comment box. Though comment box can be added at the later part once you have the complete installation done. Now I can add the comment box, but at the time when we are doing the installation, we are not supposed to add the comment box because it will not be supported. So now let's do it from the beginning again. Let me check the. Yeah, so I have a base image which I have captured before actually the installation. Let me stop the services on this. Yeah, so if I go to next node now, you can see this becomes the active node. So let's stop the services here as well. Let it be completely done. Do not make any changes till this particular thing is rotated. So now the completely services are active. Let's stop this node as well. One more thing, guys, if you observe that the quorum and the storage becomes online with the active node. Whichever the node which is active, the storage service, the storage disk would be active with that. Okay, the quorum status would be reserved and the storage status would be online. So now I'm stopping this. And by the time the services get stopped, both of this disk would be disappeared as well. So now our cluster is completely stopped. None of the nodes are having the active services at all. Let me revert to the base image here. And let me do the same for the other image as well. Let it completely be restored first of all. Okay, the same thing I would be doing on this node as well. I will be reverting it to the base image. Base image is something wherein we have the IP configured and the storage configured and nothing else from that. So we will resume it like from where we left yesterday. Guys, feel free to stop me if anything is confusing or you're not able to understand anything. Do let me know right away. Okay, so this is something the original state. And one more thing, guys, I have basically renamed the network adapter as private and public. So private is intended for node-to-node communication. The public is intended for web to node communication. So whichever the node becomes active, the web would be communicating to the public IP. And here we need to provide for the private, we need to provide the gateway. You can see, sorry, for the public, we need to provide the gateway. So you can see there is a gateway I have given. And for the private, there shouldn't be no gateway. So that is the reason that we need to have a very secure network. The private network needs to be very secure network. The node to node communication should be secure network. Hence, we are not putting any gateway IPs there. So if I were to show you the IPs here, (179) is basically the private IP, 180 is the public IP. Now we will configure the storage here. So I'll go to tools, iSCSI initiator. I'll put the IP address of my storage server 192.168.140.185. We are connected. Click on auto configure. Both of the storage, shared storage and the quorum storage would be populated here. Click OK. Okay, now go to disk manager. So we have 5 GB of shared storage and 2 GB of quorum storage. I'll make it online. I'll make it online as well. Right click, change drive letter. So the shared drive would be referred by S as in Sierra. And after that, I will format it as well. The file system has to be NTFS for both. So we need to check like in both the nodes, it is appearing as NTFS file system. The same we would be doing for the quorum as well. I will change the drive letter to Q. And then we will format it as well. So we need to make sure that the file system is NTFS. So both of these drives are showing as a healthy partition now. Now I'll make it offline so that we can do the same activity on the node 2. Whenever you bring up the drives in other node, make sure that the quorum should be first and foremost should be called. So first of all, we would be connecting to our storage server here. Go to iSCSI initiator. Click yes, so that the iSCSI services can be started. Type the IP of your storage server, that is 192.168.140.185. This is my storage IP. Whenever you plan to configure a cluster in your environment, do let me know. I can help you out. This thing, the shared storage and quorum storage are appearing here. You can click OK. Go to disk manager now. So we will bring up the shared drive, the quorum drive first. I'll make the quorum drive first and foremost, and then I will bring up the shared drive. We would be doing the same activity, that is changing the drive letter to S. And the quorum also, we would be changing the drive letter to Q. And again, we will format on a safer note, just to make sure that we have a common file system. So we have a NTFS file system appearing here. So that is good. The same thing we would be doing here as well. Format the drive. NTFS file system is appearing here. So that is good. Now both of the drives are in healthy state, and it is basically be visible and can be mapped to either of the nodes. So we are good. We will start with the node 1. Let me make it offline now. I'll go to node 1 and I will bring up the quorum first of all. The drive letter is not appearing here. Yeah, now it's coming up. So Q for quorum and S for shared. Till now we already installed yesterday. Now we will proceed with the installation of CyberArk cluster here. So this is the setup, guys, the server setup that we were having yesterday. I will just right click, run as an administrator. Click next. Next. Test. Now we will select the cluster node vault installation. So the installation of the cluster would be happening in the local drive, that is C program file x86 private R, and the safe location would be sitting in the shared drives, that is S in our case. So we'll just replace the drive letter as S. So instead of C, we will mark it as S. Let me operator CD is there, license is there. Yeah, that's all we need. Then license is sitting in the desktop. Then operator CD is also sitting in the desktop. I'll skip this. Guys, I'll explain this tomorrow. What is this remote control agent? I'll explain this. And we'll go with the hardening now. Let the hardening be completed, and then we will add the firewall rule to the storage. So now we will not add the command box in the DB param. We will simply add the firewall IP address and the port. So that's it. That is the hardening failure that can be taken care later as well. We can do it offline. So now it's prompting us to specify the master password and the administrator password. Now this is the stage wherein we need to add the firewall rule to the DB param. So I'll navigate to the DB param here. Okay, now here yesterday we have added this comment box. This was not supposed to be added. We will directly add the IP instead. Sorry, the firewall rule, and replace the firewall rule this IP with the IP of our storage server. So in our case, it is 192.168.140.185. This is the IP address of our storage server. Copy this complete string and add it over here. Save the changes. And put the username, sorry, password for the administrator. And on a safer side, I'm capturing a screenshot. So now we are good. It's logging onto the vault. Yesterday we were getting the DB secure issue. Now it is creating the safe as well, the default users as well, like administrator, auditor, backup, batch, whatever the default users are there. Now it is asking us to reboot the server. That means the on first node the vault is installed, but we will not reboot it because there are certain configuration needed before to do that. Now the important thing is, how would your node know that which is the quorum drive and which is your shared drive? So for that we will navigate to server C program file x86 private server cluster vault, and under this this is something called storage manager. This is basically an application which can be invoked, which is basically invoked through command line. Through command line we will basically let this node know that this S drive is the shared drive and Q drive is the quorum drive. So I will just open up command prompt as a administrator. It look bit weird to you, but once you install it 2-3 times, it will be very easy. So this is the command storage manager.txt minus QE. So in this, Q is basically the quorum, S is basically the shared. So for Q, we will make use of the capital Q letter because our quorum drive is Q. For shared drive, we will make use of capital S letter because our shared drive is S. Let me copy this. So I'm going to replace it Q. I'm going to replace it as S. So what it will do in the cluster configuration file, it will basically add the storage identifier. What is a storage identifier? Storage identifier is nothing but which points to your storage. Like shared drive would have its own unique storage identifier. The quorum drive would have its own storage ID. So this is the cluster configuration file. And as of now, you can see that storage identifier for the shared drive is blank. For the quorum disk, it's also blank. Once we run this command, it will basically populate the storage identifier. So let us do that now. You can see this is completed. And if I go to configuration here, you can see there is a storage identifier populated over here. These are nothing but they basically present the name of your storage. Then these are the details we need to fill up before actually rebooting the server. This is basically the cluster configuration that we need to do. What is the cluster logical name? So it can be anything though, but for the best practices or the for the convenience purpose, we will make use of this thing. So the cluster logical name would be vault cluster. We will name it as per them only. Local node logical name is something, the node of our in which we are currently. So this is the local node. So it would be vault 01A, and the peer node is basically the other node in which we are going to install the vault services after that. So peer node would be the neighboring node. This node is the peer node. We are yet to install our things here. So I will call it vault 02D. You can put anything as per your choice. Just make sure that whatever you are giving in this cluster configuration, the same needs to be given in the other node configuration file as well. That's all it is. Otherwise, there is nothing like there is anything that you need to write as per CyberArk. You can put anything as per your choice. Then network card is the public. Public is something we need to write here, which basically perform the communication from the node to the VIP, and eventually all of the components will talk to the public IP. So we will mark it as public. Then virtual VIP. Virtual VIP is what? So the IPs here is like, this is our basically the public IP. This is our basically the private IP. And on a safer side, we will put the VIP in the same subnet. So let's say it is 192.168.140.180. And in the other node, we have 192.168.140.181 and 82. So I will put the same VIP, same subnet VIP, like that is 192.168.140.190. 192.168.140.190. This is our VIP. Then local node public IP would be 192.168.140.180. This is our public IP. What it is our private IP? 192.168.140.179. This is our private IP. Same, the peer node is basically the neighboring node or the other node, for which the private IP would be 192.168.140.181. This is the private IP of the neighboring node, and 182 would be the public IP. 192.168.140.182. So now this is complete. Just be extra cautious once you are filling up the details for this thing, because this is important. Otherwise, you might not be able to bring up your cluster services. Okay, let's save the changes here. Now we can install the PrivateArk client as well, but I missed to copy the PrivateArk installation setup, so we can do it in the later stage as well. Okay. Now what I'll do, I'll simply reboot this server. Now if we start the cluster, this is the CVM cluster console through which you can see the cluster thing. So as of now, we have installed single node only. We are yet to install other node. So let's see if the services are coming up. If not, then we need to troubleshoot. So it is getting started. You can see that quorum and storage is linked to the active node. So 3 services are up now. The important one is PrivateArk server service. So if that is up, we are good. So that is up. So we are through with the first node installation. So this first node installed is complete, guys. Okay. Now we need to install the second node. So it is not indicating the status of the second node, and this is also grayed out because we don't have the switching option available since the next node is not yet installed. Okay. Now there is something that we need to do here, that if you see here in the operator CD, there are a lot of files created. Okay, these are the backup key which is created. This is replication user created, user emergency pass created, vault user pass created, server certificate created. Okay, we need to have these keys identical in both the nodes. So we need to use the same keys in the next node as well. So what I'm going to do, in the shared drive, because shared drive can be attached to both the both the nodes. So I will create a common folder called keys. Okay, in the keys, I will copy this operator CD folder and paste it in the keys folder. This is the operator key folder I have copied in the keys folder of the shared drive. Then we will copy the then we will copy the DB param as well. And put it in the shared drive. Shared drive, the keys folder that we have created. Similarly, we will also copy the database MySQL file, because there are certain things that needs to be identical in both the nodes. So I'm copying these things. I will tell you what are these things. I have pasted this as well. Then we need to have a common cluster configuration as well. So we'll copy those as well. Cluster vault configuration. This is the cluster configuration file, which is the cluster vault with the name of cluster vault. Go to keys, paste it, cluster vault. Okay, we are done with it. Copying the files. Now what I'll do, I'll stop the service. So now you will see that both the shared drive as well as the quorum drive will fade away because we are stopping the cluster service for the active node. And we will install the cluster on this next node now. Let's jump on to the next node. Let's bring up the quorum first. And let's bring up the shared now. Similar way, we would be doing the things here as well. The only difference now, if I show you from the shared drive, I will just copy the keys folder into the desktop because The operator CD, we would be using it from the node 1. Whatever the node 1 we had the keys created, the same keys to be used in the node 2 as well. So this is the operator folder that we have copied from the node 1. The same keys we would be using as well. So I'll go to server now. Setup, right click, run as an administrator. Go next. Yes. Test. Cluster vault installation here as well. The cluster would be installed locally in the C drive, but the location of the safe would be in the but the location of the safe would be in the shared drive, that is S. So I will just replace C with the S here. Go next. License, which is kept in the desktop itself. Operator CD. So now we would not be pointing to the operator CD that we copy to the node 2. We would be using the operator CD that we have copied from the node 1. So that is appearing in desktop keys, demo operator keys. Skip this thing. Let the hardening be completed. So this node is also installed, but we need to configure the same things that I have told you. First, we need to specify the identification for the storage. So we'll navigate to program files, private arc, server, cluster vault, and this is the storage manager that we need to run. So this we will copy and we will just amend the drive letter here. So this, in our case, it's capital Q for the quorum. S Q. So this is done. Okay. Now we need to update the cluster file here as well. Now you will see that it is just a mirror image of our cluster file from the node 1. So this is from the current node, and if I go to keys folder in which we have copied the cluster vault configuration, this is from the node 1. So we will just refer it from here itself. So this is our vault cluster. This is the vault cluster. The cluster logical name would be vault cluster. So whatever the common things are here, I am putting it first. because this has to be identical. Then networking would be public. Then this peer node, this was the peer node information. Now it becomes the local node here. So this is now the local node. Local logical node, logical name, just this. And the peer node or the neighboring node becomes the one that we have already installed. Virtual IP would be 190. It is common IP for both the nodes. The VIP. Now the important part is, first of all, we will cover for the local node. So for the local node, IP config. This is the private IP. This is the public IP. 181 is the private IP. So for the local node, 192.168.140.181 is the private IP, and 192.168.140.182, this is the public IP. Peer node here is 181. Let me plug in the charger, guys. Just peer node public IP would be 179. Let me just double check private IP. Yeah, 192.168.140.179, and the public IP would be 180. Now we have completed this thing, the cluster vault configuration. Let's save the changes there. Now next thing is, we need to have common server ID. So in the DB param, if you see, there is a server ID. This is from the node 1, which I'm opening here. So you can see that the vault ID is there. There are two things. The first is the server ID, then second is the vault ID. So vault ID is something which is given in the DB param, which we have copied from the node 1. So we need to have the common vault ID. What I'll do, I'll just simply copy this. And for this node 2, I will paste this vault ID. This is the vault ID. I'll be replacing it with the one that we have copied from the node 1. Then second is the, if I go back to the keys folder that we have copied from the my.ini file, we have something called the server ID, I believe it's. This is the server ID. So we will copy the server ID from the one that we have copied from node 1. I'll just copy this. Go to C drive, program file, private arc, server, configuration. Sorry. So these all details are there in the document that I have shared already. In the my.ini file, we would be replacing the server ID, what we have copied from the node 1. So this is the server ID. Let us save the changes. So now we have identical keys, we have identical server ID, we have identical vault ID, everything is identical as per node 1. And we have updated the vault configuration file as well. What is the cluster name, what is the VIP, what is the local private IP, what is the local public IP, what is the neighboring node public IP, what is the neighboring node private IP. We have done with the changes. Now let's reboot the server. Always make sure that your storage server should always be up and running whenever you are dealing with the cluster, as otherwise we might end up in the database corruption. So let this node be started once. Now let's start the CVM cluster console. So the storage are available. This is reserved, this is online. So this is a good indication. But the important part is the private server service should be up and running. So as of now, we have the cluster service which is coming up. Database service which is coming up. Private database logic container is coming up. The important one is server service. So it may take some time for the second node, but it's getting failed here. So let's stop this and we will check the error. So whenever you encounter such kind of issues, you would refer to the cluster console log. And always make sure that while the cluster is running, never do any kind of changes. This is the main log file, guys. Let's just like IT log we have for the vault, we have console logs for the cluster. Timeout has occurred. Failed to get device identifier for disk. Let us check the cluster vault configuration here. Let me double check the IPs as well. (181) is the private and 182 is the public. I did the reverse here. Public one is, yeah, I did a mistake here. The private IP is 182. The private is 181. And this is, that is getting confused here. Yeah, this is the mistake, 2 and 1. Let us see how it goes. And let's reboot this node as well. So we have purposely stopped the node 1 just to make sure that node 2 works as appropriate. And let's see how it goes. There was an issue with the IP addressing that needs to be cautiously done. So I missed that step. So it should be started by now. Okay, so this is because of the MBR signature issue. We have a different signature in the storage here. So that is the main problem here. We should have used a different drive instead. Let me do one thing here. Let me just close this. Let me stop this once. And let us run that command again, wherein we would be doing the stamping for the storage. So this is a drive corruption issue that we are having as of now. Let me bring up the drive once. Drives are not coming up here. Let me reboot this once again. So the problem is, like, I have used the same drive which I have built cluster with. So that's the reason why we are getting this corruption happening. I should have used a different drive with the different MBR signature on it, and that's where the problem is all about. So let me try doing fixing it. Otherwise, I can show it from my configuration. Okay, guys, one mistake I have done here. We have not added the firewall rule in this case. So that's the main issue that we are having. It's not able to reach out to the firewall itself. Let me stop the cluster service here. It's already stopped, and let's add the firewall rule. So we missed to do that step. Let's do it right away. It's always good to refer the document whenever you are installing. Otherwise, we might end up in. So at last, we need to add firewall because this node is unable to communicate to the storage server itself. And that's the reason why we are getting these issues. If I copy this thing, it won't let us copy anything. So we will make use of this thing, QDB param. Copy. Let's save the changes now. Let's reboot this node now. Let's see the cluster service now. So one thing I would always recommend to check step by step from the document whenever you are in process of getting the server build done or the cluster build done, just to avoid any kind of issues. Hopefully this should have the connectivity by now. Still the disk are not tagged to this. Yeah, as of now it's showing as release and offline. So at least it is detecting the disk. So let's do one thing. Let's start the node 1 as well, and then we will do a failover. Let this become active. So this is starting now. And once it's started, I will start the next node as well, so that both of them become active in the cluster. So this is starting. You can see the storage is online and it is reserved. Let it completely come up first. There's a bit of more troubleshooting needed here just to check the peer node status, which is it's not indicating as of now. Still, it's not able to connect. Let me check the DB param here. Let me restart this node again so it can take it up from the beginning. This firewall rule that we have missed is this something which is causing the issue. It's not able to reach out to the drive itself after that. Let's start the iSCSI service in case it's stopped as well. So it's still in the process of reconnecting only. Let me stop the services on this active node. Let's see if the failover happens to the next node. So if the failover happens, then we are good. That means the cluster is working as appropriate. Yes. So this seems like it's working now. Let this become the active. Let us see the status of the drives here. Now it's trying to reconnect again. Let us try one more time. If it comes again, that is good enough. Otherwise, we will just reinstall it again. No, it's not able to reach out to the virtual disk. So let's stop this and let's revert the changes. Let us quickly install this now. So before restarting itself, we should have added the firewall rule. I have missed to add that firewall rule, and that is causing the entire conflict here. Now this is the node 2 again. Let us bring up the services, disks here. Let us connect to the storage server 192.168.140.185. Here, so let's bring up the quorum first and then the shared ones. Let me change the drive letter. Sorry, we're not supposed to format it now because we already have something in it. Now change the drive letter to Q for S. Sorry, it would be S. And for the shared drive, we need to have the keys folder copied and kept it here. And let's quickly install the world server on this as well. License file is there in the desktop. Operator CD is the one that we would be using it, that we have copied from the node 1. Skip this. I will be skipping the hardening as well just to avoid the waste of time. So the hardening can be done in the later stage as well. Now we will do the configuration quickly here. We'll not reboot our server as of now. I will just open up this DB param. The first and foremost thing I will be doing is adding the firewall rule that we have missed yesterday. In the last time we have missed it. Let me add copy this firewall rule. Go to share drive, program file x86, private arc server, configuration, DB param. Okay, now second thing is I need to add the server ID as well. Just to avoid confusion, let me open it again. This is the vault ID I need to copy. So vault DB param part is done. Now let's move on to my.ini file. So in the keys, we have my.ini file, which we have copied from the node 1. I will copy the server ID as well from here. This is the server ID. Let's quickly copy this. And let's navigate to the configuration folder here. Save the changes. So the my.ini file is also done. Now we will configure the vault configuration file. So we will go to this. So as of before that, we will need to complete the storage identifier part as well. Let's do that right away. Storage -Q, capital Q, -S, capital S. This is done. Let us navigate to the cluster vault here. So this is the current node here. And this is the one that we have copied from the node 1. Let me copy the common parameters quickly here. So vault cluster is something common. Let's put it over here. We need to make sure there should not be any kind of trailing space. Then virtual IP is common thing. Let me add that as well quickly. Then the network card is common, which is public again. Okay. Now we need to add the details like the local node public IP, local node private IP. So what is public IP we have? IP config. We have, this is the public IP. 182 is the public IP and 181 is the private IP. So let us put the private IP first. 192.168.140.181. This is the private IP, and the public IP is 182. 192.161, sorry, 168, 140 dot 182. This is our public IP. Then peer node private IP would be 179. 192.168.140.179, and the public IP would be 180. 192.168.140.180. We are done with the cluster vault configuration as well now. Okay, so we are through with everything. Let me double check it just to avoid any kind of dilemma in the later stage of time. We have added the firewall rule. Yeah, let's reboot the server now. Let's start the cluster vault configuration now. Why it's failing again? Local node logical name. Okay. Sorry guys, we missed one thing here. So that is a doable thing, not to worry about it. Let's do it quickly. These two things we failed here. So let's do it quickly here. Local node vault 0 to B, and it would be vault 01A. Yeah, so now it's taking place here. Let's start the other node as well. It's starting now, you can see. So now you can see the status of quorum is becoming reserved and the storage is online, which is something that we were expecting in the earlier as well. The only part is the private server service, which is the important service that should come up as soon as possible. So install it guys 2-3 times, because I am also installing it after a while. So install it 2-3 times so you will get hands-on into it. So we have now the private service coming up. and this node is active. Let's start the other node as well. So now we are good. We can see the fellow node indication over here. The next node is active. And the same we can see here as well, that the next node is passive. We can do a failover as well. So now the resources would be moved to the next node. So just one thing which is very important, guys, just pay attention to this document whenever you are installing it. Because once you goof up with any step, you need to do the complete steps again and again, just like I did it like for the 2 days we have been installing it. Ideally, it takes time, but once you do it like multiple times, that shouldn't be a problem, because that by that time you would have everything in your tips. So anything on this, guys, feel free to let me know, or whenever you are planning to install it in your VMware, because on the AWS you won't be able to do so. So if you are planning to do it in your VMware, do let me know. I can assist you in that.